The sound that shattered 40 years of family silence was not a scream, and it was not a sob. It was the dry thud of a lawyer placing documents on the dining room table and saying, "We need to talk about how to divide the house when you are gone." My children, the successful doctor and the ambitious businesswoman, did not look at me. They looked at the papers, at the signatures that needed to be there, at the market value that I represented now that I had turned 80. The room that had witnessed their first steps, their birthday parties, our Sunday dinners, reduced to numbers in a spreadsheet. They discussed bedrooms as if they were shares on the stock market, bathrooms as if they were dividends. I was sitting on the same sofa where I nursed both of them, listening to my own children plan my real estate funeral. Greed had a smell now. It was the aroma of the coffee we used to drink together every morning, now served in cups that seemed to be worth more than my memories. That was when my grandson Lucas, 17 years old, walked into the room. He saw the documents, he saw his parents' expressions, he saw my face. And without saying a word, he took the lawyer's pen and slashed across the entire page with a stroke so violent it almost tore the paper. "You are sick," he whispered, looking at his parents as if he was seeing them for the very first time. The fight erupted then, accusations, shouts, threats. My son calling his own son ungrateful, my daughter saying that feelings do not pay bills. And I just watched. As if I was sitting in a theater, watching a play where all the actors had forgotten that I was still in the audience. The house I had built brick by brick, memory by memory, was being dismantled before my eyes by the very people who were supposed to protect it. Then something inside me woke up. It was not anger, it was not sadness. It was a calm so deep that it almost frightened me. While they screamed about inheritance and division, I got up and went to the study. I opened the secret drawer behind my husband's portrait, the man who died believing he was leaving behind a united family. And I took out the yellowed envelope. The deed that was not an ordinary deed. The document that turned our house not into property, but into legacy. The secret I had kept for 20 years. Since the day I realized I had raised children who loved what I had more than who I was. I went back to the living room and placed the envelope on top of the lawyer's documents. "Before you decide what to do with my house," I said, my voice steadier than it had been in the last 10 years, "perhaps you should know what I have already done with it." The silence that followed was more frightening than all the shouting. My children stopped fighting each other and began to stare at me as if I were a stranger. And in a way, in that moment, I was. What began as just another family argument became the first real conversation in decades. While my children left the room with the lawyer, carrying the envelope as if it were a ticking bomb, Lucas stayed. And in the silence that settled between us, we discovered that we were the only two people in that house who still believed that walls can shelter souls, not only assets. He walked toward me slowly, as if I might break. "Grandma," he said, and there was a pain in that word that did not belong to a teenager. "Have they always been like this?" The question was simple, but the answer was an abyss filled with 40 years of motherhood. I told him about the doctor who chose specialties that paid more, about the businesswoman who traded family trips for corporate mergers. I told him about the nights when I waited for phone calls that never came, about birthdays celebrated alone, with a single slice of cake and many memories. Lucas listened without interrupting, his eyes, the same green eyes as his grandfather, fixed on me as if he was decoding an ancestral code. "I hear the way they talk about you," he confessed, his voice a whisper of secondhand shame. They call you the investment. They say they kept you here because property in the family appreciates in value. Each word was a knife, but spoken with such tenderness that the pain became almost sacred. Then he revealed his own secret. I heard them planning to put you in a nursing home, he said, the words spilling out like a confession that had been burning inside him. It was 6 months ago, when you broke your hip. They discussed costs, convenience, the emotional burden. I was in the room next door, pretending to play video games. He looked down at his hands, as if they could hold the disappointment that was overflowing from him. I almost told you, but I was afraid of being the messenger who would break your heart. In that moment, we were no longer grandmother and grandson. We were two survivors of the same family shipwreck. I told him then about the envelope. Not about what was inside, but about why it existed. About the day my husband, on his deathbed, asked me to protect the house from the greed he already saw sprouting in our children. About the 20 years I had carried that secret alone, guarding it as if it were the last piece of who I once was. Lucas did not judge me. He did not call me manipulative. He simply took my hand, the same hand that had rocked him to sleep when he was a baby, and said, "You are not alone anymore, Grandma." We spent the whole afternoon on the porch, where I used to sit with my husband at the end of the day. Lucas showed me photos on his phone, selfies he took at school, messages from his parents canceling plans because of work commitments. And I showed him photo albums he had never seen, his father at 8 years old, promising that when he grew up he would buy an even bigger house for me, his mother at 10, drawing designs of how she would remodel our garden. The same people, different versions of the ones who now saw our house as an obstacle to be removed. They got lost along the way, I said, and for the first time there was no bitterness in that realization, only a deep sadness. Lucas nodded. But we are not going to get lost, he promised. And in that moment, something changed inside me. The secret I had carried alone for 20 years was no longer only mine, it was ours. The house was no longer only my inheritance to leave behind, it was our legacy to protect. And for the first time since my husband died, I did not feel alone inside these walls that I loved so much. But our alliance woke up a monster that slept in the corridors of greed, fear. They realized that I was no longer the senile old woman who calmly accepted the fate drawn by younger hands. There was a spark in my eyes that reminded everyone of the woman who had built this house with her own hands, brick by brick, dream by dream. And fear has a very specific smell. It is the scent of control about to slip through someone's fingers, the acrid aroma of authority being questioned by those who were supposed to remain quietly resigned. The days that followed became a silent choreography of calculated invasions, each move choreographed to send a clear message of displacement. My son began to bring real estate agents as if they were visiting friends, men in expensive suits who measured the rooms with eyes that converted square meters into figures, their mental calculators turning memories into cold numbers. My daughter brought catalogs from luxury nursing homes, flipping through glossy pages that promised specialized care as if she were choosing a resort, her delicate hands turning pages that described my future cell as if it were paradise. They talked about my health as if it were a logistical problem to be solved, about my loneliness as if it were a business opportunity to be explored. Each gesture carried a clear and inescapable message. You no longer belong here, your time in this place has expired. The house that had always been my refuge became a golden prison where I was both warden and inmate, watching as Lucas was gradually pushed away through invented study shifts and family commitments that coincidentally took place at the same times as our conversations on the porch. They did not need to forbid our connection. It was enough to make it inconvenient, to push it around in time until it became a distant memory, a bond that would dissolve simply from lack of emotional nourishment. Greed does not need to be loud to be violent. Sometimes it dresses up as concern and speaks with the gentle voice of it is for your own good, while its hands are already measuring the space you occupy. There is a cruel irony in growing old within the same walls that once witnessed your strength, in watching the body that carried children now need support just to climb stairs you used to run up. Every wrinkle on my face found an echo in a crack in the wall, every aching joint reflected in a window that creaked in the wind, every moment of forgetfulness mirrored in peeling paint. The house and I were aging together, two entities intertwined by history, united by the time that was shaping us both. My children wanted to separate what time had joined. They wanted the house without my soul inside it, as if it were possible to preserve the shell without the ship, the skin without the fruit. And at night, sleepless, I asked myself, when does the house stop being a home? When do memories become annoyances to be removed? When does love turn into an obstacle in the path of progress? They did not understand that by trying to take me away from here, they were trying to erase their own story, to deny the roots that held them up. Every bedroom held echoes of their childhood laughter, every corner preserved the shadow of their hesitant little steps, every wall had witnessed promises made in moments of vulnerability. Greed is a peculiar form of selective amnesia. It erases everything that cannot be turned into money, everything that does not fit into a computer spreadsheet, everything that resists the logic of the market. My children have forgotten that they were loved inside these walls, that they were cradled in the same arms they now saw as too fragile to carry the weight of the past. The night of the silent confrontation arrived like a thunderclap without sound, a storm announced not by noise, but by pressure in the air. They gathered in the living room, my two children, the lawyer with his leather briefcase, a real estate agent who smelled of cheap ambition and professional desperation. Lucas was locked in his room, studying for an important exam, his isolation just one more piece in the puzzle of my displacement. I watched them from the kitchen, through the half-open door, seeing their animated gestures, their professional smiles, their body language of conquerors. They were no longer arguing. They were planning, with the coldness of strategists. They spoke about optimizing assets, about liquidity, about maximizing return. My life, my 80 springs, reduced to a variable in a financial equation, my worth calculated by the space I took up and the inconvenience I represented. That was when I realized the deepest and most painful truth: they were not trying to remove me from the house. They were trying to get rid of the woman I represented. The mother who remembered their failures and broken promises, the wife who had witnessed dreams abandoned along the way, the guardian who refused to allow the past to be erased in the name of empty progress. I left the kitchen and climbed the stairs slowly, each step a testimony to how many times I had carried them in my arms up that same staircase. I went into my bedroom and closed the door. The silence was more eloquent than any argument. In that voluntary solitude, I understood that some battles are not fought with words, but with silence, and that the most subversive power an elderly person has is the patience to wait for greed to devour itself. Under the growing pressure that was closing around me like an invisible siege, I found myself standing at the edge of the deepest moral abyss of my existence. It was not a choice between surrendering or resisting, but between two equally painful truths: protecting my children from the greed that was consuming them or allowing them to face the consequences of their own distorted desires. Each option carried the weight of 80 years of motherhood. Each path promised a different kind of ruin, the ruin of the heart or the ruin of the soul. The nights became silent courts where I judged not only my children, but my own creation. Where had I gone wrong? What seeds of ambition had I planted without realizing it? Had I, by giving them everything, taught them to value having over being? My mind revisited every decisive moment, the times when I prioritized work in order to give them material comfort, the weekends I dedicated to building this house instead of playing in the park, the lessons about perseverance that may have sounded like an apology for success at any cost. The house itself became my silent accuser. Every wall that I had raised with so much love now seemed to ask whether I had built a home or a status symbol. The photographs in the hallway told our story, but I wondered if those smiles frozen in time already hid the seeds of the greed that now bloomed fully. The choice before me was not about property, but about forgiveness. Should I forgive them for being exactly what I had, unintentionally, taught them to be? Or should I hold them responsible for the choices they had made as adults? Motherhood, I discovered, does not end with age. It simply becomes more complex, more philosophical, full of nuances that defy any simplistic morality. The yellowed envelope in the secret drawer pulsed with its own energy, as if it contained not only paper, but the essence of all my past decisions. My husband, on his deathbed, had entrusted that secret to me not as a weapon, but as an antidote. Use this to remind them who they are, he whispered with his last breaths. But he could not have known that I would need to use it not to remind them of their essence, but to protect them from themselves. The document inside the envelope was not only a legal move. It was the materialization of a promise made 50 years earlier, when we bought the land with the savings of a lifetime. It was proof that some things go beyond market value, that some spaces are sacred not because of what they contain, but because of what they represent. To reveal the secret would mean shattering the last illusion of family harmony, but to keep it would mean allowing greed to consume my children completely. I felt like a moral surgeon forced to decide which organ to remove in order to save the patient, filial love or the integrity of the home. The house watched my agony in silence, its walls witnessing yet another inner battle in the woman who had built them. Dawn on the fourth day after the silent confrontation found me on the porch, watching the sunrise paint the sky with colors that had witnessed countless cycles of renewal. That was when I understood a fundamental truth. I was not choosing between my children and the house. I was choosing between two versions of myself, the protective mother who covered up faults or the guardian who honored promises. The choice was not about punishment, but about love in its hardest and truest form. Sometimes loving means allowing those we love to face the consequences of their choices, even when it hurts us more than it hurts them. With trembling hands that shook not from age, but from emotion, I opened the secret drawer and took out the envelope. Not as a weapon, but as a mirror. I would show my children not what I had done, but what they had become. The revelation would not be an attack, but an invitation to awaken. And if they chose not to wake up, well, some truths need to be spoken even when there are no ears willing to hear them. Some battles need to be fought even when victory seems impossible. Because in the end, a life is not defined by the battles we win, but by the truths we have the courage to face. My choice cost me not only family peace, but the very identity I had carried for 80 years. The revelation of the secret did not awaken regret in my children. It awakened fury. and I discovered that there is a peculiar violence in the way those who once loved us can dehumanize us when they are confronted with inconvenient truths. Suddenly, I was no longer mother, grandmother, woman. I was an obstacle, a problem to be solved, an error in the calculations of their perfectly designed plans. The silence that followed the revelation was more eloquent than any screaming. My children did not argue, did not debate, did not question. They simply left, carrying with them not only the document that transformed the house into a cultural foundation, but also the last traces of filial love that still remained. The days became a choreography of calculated absences, phone calls that never came, visits canceled because of urgent commitments, text messages that spoke only of bureaucratic matters. The house, once vibrant with family energy, became a mausoleum of memories that hurt to touch. Lucas was completely removed from my life. His parents invented an accelerated exchange program, an opportunity that could not be missed. Our silent alliance was not broken by an argument, but by an imposed geographical distance. I found myself wandering through the empty rooms, every object telling a story that now sounded like an accusation. The bed where they were born, the table where they celebrated their birthdays, the garden where they played, everything had become a mute witness to my chosen solitude. The fall did not arrive with drama, but with the frightening quiet of deliberate abandonment. And I wondered if it had been worth it, if the truth really sets us free or only trades one kind of prison for another. The night I turned 81 found me alone in the dining room, facing a cake I had ordered myself, with a single candle flickering in the dark. There were no gifts, no embraces, no joyful singing. Only the echo of past birthdays and the deafening silence of the present. That was when I plunged into the deepest abyss of old age, not physical loneliness, but existential loneliness. Who was I without the role of mother? What did my life mean if those I had given birth to saw me as an obstacle? The walls of the house seemed to close in around me, not as an embrace, but as a cell. Every wrinkle in the mirror told not only of years, but of lost opportunities, words unsaid, loves misunderstood. I did not see myself as the heroine of my own story, but as the villain in theirs. The choice I had made did not bring me the peace of honesty, but the agony of rejection. The house I had protected so fiercely had become my golden prison, and I the guardian of a treasure no one else valued. On that lonely birthday night, I finally understood the ultimate price of integrity. It does not guarantee happiness, only the clean conscience of having done what you believed was right. And sometimes that conscience is the loneliest companion in the world. At the bottom of that emotional well, a long-buried memory surfaced with painful clarity. I remembered my own parents, elderly and fragile, and how I, in my youthful arrogance, made decisions for them for their own good. I remembered our childhood home being sold without their full consent, their furniture donated as if it were just old junk. The cycle was complete. I was living what I had made my parents live. The irony was so perfect that it hurt. Perhaps that was cosmic justice, feeling in my own flesh the consequences of past choices. I accepted my fall then, not as defeat, but as a final lesson. Some lessons can only be understood at the bottom of the well, when every ladder has been removed and all that is left is to look up and understand the distance traveled. My loneliness was not my punishment, but my teacher. And in the first light of the next morning, something inside me grew quiet. The battle was not lost, it had simply changed form. I no longer needed to prove my worth to anyone, not even to my children. My worth was in having had the courage to face the truth, even knowing it would cost me everything. And perhaps, In the greater scheme of things, that courage was worth more than all the conditional love in the world. But at the bottom of that existential well, where every certainty had dissolved and only the naked truth remained, something extraordinary began to grow, not hope, but understanding. I understood that the fall was not the end of the journey, but its most crucial turning point. The solitude I had feared so much revealed itself not as my enemy, but as my most faithful ally, because in the absence of all outside noise, I could finally hear the voice that had always been there, the voice of the woman who had built this house not to leave an inheritance, but to live a life with meaning. The lonely mornings became my sanctuary of rediscovery. While the sun rose over the garden my husband and I had planted together, I began to see the invisible threads that still connected me to the world. The nurse who came to give me my weekly injections did not come only out of obligation. Her eyes showed genuine interest when I told stories about the house. The mailman always stopped to talk, fascinated by the unique architecture that had witnessed decades of history. The lawyer who had helped set up the Cultural Foundation called not to charge fees, but to ask how I was coping with the isolation. These small gestures, so insignificant to those who live surrounded by love, became for me undeniable proof that a person's value is not measured by the love of those she raised, but by the quality of the connections she cultivates throughout life. The house, far from being my prison, revealed itself as my greatest ally. Its walls held not only family memories, but the essence of who I had been before I was a mother, before I was a wife, when I was just a woman with dreams and the courage to build them with her own hands. Every crack in the wall told the story of my resilience. Every old piece of furniture witnessed my personal taste. Every book on the shelf revealed my curious mind. I did not need my children to validate me. I was already validated by a lifetime of conscious choices. The surprise came on a rainy afternoon, when the doorbell rang and I found Lucas standing there, drenched but with the same determined green eyes as his grandfather. "I canceled the exchange program," he announced simply. "My education can wait. My grandmother cannot." He did not come back alone. He brought with him a network I did not even know existed. The nurse revealed that she had a law degree and offered her help without charging. The mailman had a brother who was a journalist, interested in writing a piece about elderly people being pressured to leave their homes. The lawyer for the foundation discovered that my children were violating terms of the document by trying to force a sale. Suddenly, I was no longer alone. I was at the center of a small, silent revolution. Lucas, with the early wisdom that only deep disappointment can give, organized everything with an efficiency that would have made his parents proud, if they were not so busy trying to dismantle our legacy. He created an online support group, connected with organizations that defend the rights of the elderly, and began to document every attempt my children made to pressure me. The irony was delicious. The technology my children worshipped was being used to protect exactly what they considered outdated. And I, who had always felt uncomfortable with cell phones and computers, found myself at the center of a digital strategy to defend what was analog, tangible, real. With Lucas as my right hand and a small team of unlikely allies, we began to prepare our defense, not as an attack, but as an affirmation of principles. We did not want to sue my children. We wanted to give them one last chance to remember who they were. We prepared not legal briefs, but an emotional file, photographs of them as children, letters they had written to me on special dates, recordings of their little voices singing songs I had taught them. The strategy was simple. Instead of confronting them with the law, confront them with their own past. Instead of threatening them with legal consequences, show them the emotional cost of their choices. Lucas suggested a family dinner, the first in months. Let us invite them not to discuss the house, he proposed, but to remind them that we are still a family. The idea was as simple as it was brilliant, to use the very weapon they had abandoned, love. On the eve of that encounter, while I arranged the photographs in the family album, I felt something that I had not felt in a long time, not hope for reconciliation, but peace with any outcome. Because I finally understood that some battles are not won when the other side surrenders, but when you stop needing their surrender in order to feel complete. The dinner that would change everything did not begin with reconciliation, but with the heavy sound of car doors closing and hesitant footsteps on the front path. My children arrived not as conquerors, but as prisoners of their own greed, their faces marked by months of self-imposed absence. The house did not receive them with accusation, but with the eloquent silence of a place that had witnessed their entire story, from their first uncertain steps to their last steps of withdrawal. And in that dining room lit by the same light that had seen countless family meals, something greater than any dispute over property was about to happen. The meal unfolded in tense silence, until Lucas, with a courage far beyond his years, stood up and turned on the projector. The first images were not legal documents or market values, but black and white photographs of them as children, playing in the garden they now saw only as valuable land. Image after image appeared on the wall, their first days of school, birthday parties, Sunday dinners, moments when this house was not an investment, but the stage of their lives. My children watched in silence, their faces gradually losing the professional mask and revealing the vulnerability they tried to hide. Then my eldest son, the doctor, broke. "Why did you not tell us about the foundation earlier?" he asked, his voice filled not with anger, but with genuine confusion. In that moment I understood the heart of the problem. They were not angry about what I had done, but about the fact that they had not been included in the decision. About having discovered that, in their eyes, I did not trust them enough to share something so important. The revelation was like a flash of clarity. The conflict had never been about property, but about broken trust on both sides. They felt that I had excluded them from a decision that affected their legacy, and I felt that they had excluded me from their lives by treating me as an obstacle. Two sides of the same coin of misunderstanding. It was my daughter, the always controlled businesswoman, who spoke the words that changed everything. "We were afraid, Mother," she confessed, her tears finally breaking through the wall of control. "Afraid of being left with nothing, afraid that you would leave us without an inheritance, afraid that all our achievements would not be enough." In that moment, the veil of greed lifted to reveal what lay beneath, not boundless ambition, but deep insecurity. They had grown up watching friends lose family inheritances, seeing fortunes disappear in a single generation, and their desire to secure the house was, in its distorted essence, a desire to preserve something that represented stability in an uncertain world. I, in turn, confessed my own fear, the fear that, when I died, nothing of me would remain beyond fleeting memories. The fear that the house I had built with so much love would become just another property on the market, without soul, without story. Two different fears, both trying to preserve what they loved, both making mistakes in the attempt to protect it. Forgiveness did not arrive as a dramatic explosion, but as a gradual understanding that each of us, in our own way, had been trying to protect the family in the only way we knew. They with financial planning, I with emotional preservation. None of us was completely wrong, and none of us was completely right. We were simply human, painfully human. The final transformation did not come with the signing of new documents or with the redistribution of inheritances. It came when my son suggested that the cultural foundation I had created should not exist only to preserve the house after my death, but to turn it into a community center while I was still alive. "Why wait to share this with the world?" he asked, and for the first time in years, I saw in his eyes not the calculating doctor, but the little boy who loved to show our home to his friends. My daughter, with her business mind, began to plan how to transform the property into a space that would celebrate not only our family history, but the story of all families that build homes with love and hard work. Lucas watched everything with a smile that said, "I knew this was possible." And I, sitting at the head of the table where so many meals had been shared, understood that true legacy is not what we leave behind, but what we build together while we are still here. The house did not need to be preserved as a museum of the past. It could become a seed for the future. And in that moment, with my family gathered not out of obligation, but by choice, I finally understood the deepest meaning of the word home. It is not the place where we are, but the space where we become who we are meant to be, together.